G'day, I'm Malcolm Roberts, lead federal Senate candidate for Pauline Hanson's One Nation in Queensland. In this video, I want to explain how the voting system works in the Senate, the upper house, and how to ensure your vote and preferences can protect Australia from the Labor-Liberal duopoly. Understanding preferences is the first step to making your vote count and having your say in governing Australia. A One Nation controlled Senate will ensure that the views of Australians are heard and is the only way to stop the Greens and Labor from destroying our culture, values, way of life, and everything we have all worked hard to achieve. The most important thing to remember when voting in the Senate is that voters have a choice of two methods: voting either for parties above the line or for individual candidates below the line. Secondly, if you vote above the line, for your vote to be counted, you must put numbers in at least 6 boxes, although you can number more if you want. If you vote below the line, you must mark at least 12 candidates, although you can mark more if you want. Votes that mix numbers above and below the line will not be counted and are tossed in the bin. In voting for the Senate, voters do not have to put numbers next to all candidates, yet must vote for a set minimum number of parties or candidates. The Senate ballot paper can be very long. Firstly, let's look at above the line, where there is a list of parties and a single box for each party. Write the number 1 in the box next to the party that is your first choice, the party that you trust to best represent you on the floor of the Senate as your voice in Parliament. You prefer them first, so write number 1. That's how the term preferences arose, by the way, the order in which you, the voter, prefer the candidates, your preference. Then, in case your number 1 doesn't get enough votes to get up and be elected, your vote will flow to your number 2. So write the number 2 in the box beside the party you think will do the second best job of representing you in the Senate as your voice in Parliament. Preferences make sure your vote for minor parties is not wasted. In case your first and second choices do not get up, write the number 3 in the box next to your choice for third best party to represent you. Then continue to write numbers 4, 5 and 6 for minor parties that protect Australian values and our way of life. For your vote to count and your voice to be heard, voters must number a minimum of 6 parties, 1 to 6, above the line. If a voter wants, she or he can choose to allocate a number next to each of more than 6 parties, with every number used only once and in sequence. This change came into effect in 2016. For the 2016 election only, there was a saving clause that a vote would be valid if only the number 1 was used. The Australian Electoral Commission has not advised about this for elections after 2016, so that means we recommend numbering the required minimum of 6 parties above the line. Like Pauline, One Nation tells the truth. These are only suggestions to voters. Voters can mark parties in the order in which the voter prefers. The failed old parties have no control on where your vote goes. Their how to vote cards can only make suggestions. On the Senate ballot paper, there are usually more than 6 parties, so voters do not have to vote for any of the failed old Liberal, Labor, Nationals, Greens parties. Voters can protest against these failed parties. Simply vote for minor parties. If a voter does not like our suggestions for preferences, 2 to 6, the voter can mark preferences in the order the voter wants. Yet One Nation needs every voter's primary, number 1 vote. Secondly, if a voter chooses not to vote for parties, and instead wants to vote for individual candidates, voters need to vote only below the line, where every candidate's name is listed. These are listed under the party name or in a group. To vote below the line, write the number 1 for the individual candidate you trust to best represent you on the floor of Parliament. Then write the number 2 in the box beside the individual candidate that you prefer second best. In that way, in case your number 1 doesn't get enough votes to get up, your vote will flow automatically to your number 2 candidate. Then write the number 3 next to the candidate you prefer third best. Write a 4 next to the candidate you prefer fourth best, and so on all the way to at least 12. Voters can, if they want, mark numbers next to more than 12 candidates, and if they do that, must write numbers in sequence starting with the number 1. Voters can vote for an individual candidate in any order on a party or group list. For your vote to be counted, and for you to have a say in who represents you in Canberra, if you vote below the line, you must number at least 12 candidates. Again, the choice is yours on how you mark numbers. The failed old parties have no control on where your vote goes, and their how to vote cards are only suggestions. We suggest voting One Nation's lead Senate candidate number 1. Then our other candidates in the order shown on the ballot paper. Then the rest of your 12 in the order in which you prefer among candidates from other parties. If a voter does not like our suggestions for preferences, the voter can mark preferences how they want. Yet we need every voter's number 1 vote. While the choice is yours, many voters find voting above the line easier and quicker. Voting One Nation number 1 in the Senate will help protect you from the Liberal-Labor duopoly. We put Australia first, and we hold the failed old parties accountable. We all know Senator Pauline Hanson is the hardest working member of federal parliament, and we need more people beside her in parliament working for you. In that way, if Bill Shorten becomes Prime Minister, One Nation in the Senate will be our country's insurance policy. Understanding preferences is the first step to making your vote count and having your say in governing Australia. Authorised Michael Pucci, Unit 2, 38 Hudson Road, Albion, Queensland 4010. Spoken Malcolm Roberts.